The world is ancient, far older than humans or the many species that live on it. Over time, as the planet changed, animals evolved and adapted in incredible and surprising ways to survive, and some of them are still thriving today. From fish living in the deepest parts of the ocean to a species that can reverse its age, here are 20 of the oldest living animals in the world. Number 20. Jonathan the tortoise. Now, I noted before there are certain creatures in the world that humanity is in tune with in regards to knowing how long they are likely to last if you were to find one. And when it comes to turtles and tortoises, they're usually at the top of the list. These guys can last a really long time. For the best example of this, you need only to look at Jonathan the tortoise. To be very specific on the matter, Jonathan is a Seychelles giant tortoise, and he's been around for a really long time. But how long, you may be asking? As of this year, in 2024, he's about 191 years old. Oh, and that also makes him the oldest land animal in the world that anybody knows of. Jonathan hatched around 1832 and then was brought to Saint Helena from the Seychelles in 1882 at about 50 years of age. Since then, he's lived on the land of the governor's house, known as the plantation house, and is actually taken care of by the government itself. Now, there could be a joke to be made here, but I like Jonathan, so I'm not going to do that. It should also be noted that the government needs to take care of Jonathan because of his age, and it's left him in not the best position to take care of himself. By that, I refer to how he's actually blind, he can't smell anything, and he often gets mugged by his fellow tortoises whenever he accidentally drops his food. Despite all of that, though, Jonathan is overall quite healthy, and the people who care for him give him a proper diet so he can keep on ticking. The tortoise is so popular that when people like the royal family of England come to Saint Helena, they always try to see Jonathan. Number 19. The Greenland shark. I'll admit right off the bat that this next creature has a ridiculously long lifespan, but it's also one that's honestly a bit hard to prove, which is why I'm giving more of an estimate here than a hard number like with Henry or Jonathan. Meet the Greenland shark. You find this shark off the coast of Greenland. The waters of the North Atlantic and the Arctic are where they reside, and they're really, really cold. And that's why there's so little information about these sharks. This includes anything we may know about their lifespan because they simply cannot be reached. Just as important, they are one of the biggest sharks around, measuring in at about 6.4 meters and 1,000 kilograms at max. They're not sharks that you really want to mess with. Yet, when it comes to their lifespans, it's truly shocking, as it's believed that they can live up to 500 years. Sure, some of the low balls of that estimate are around 250 years, but that's still quite a long time for a single animal to live. Based on some research, it's even been speculated they don't reach certain levels of maturity, such as for mating, until they're about 150 years old. So then, how do we know this? Well, there has been some kind of research on Greenland sharks that have actually been captured in the past, and they used a special dating system that used eye crystals to measure their age. The shark they had captured appeared to be 392 years old, give or take about 120 years. Regardless of how long they do actually live, it's a fact that when they have children, it takes a while for them to grow enough to birth. It takes 8 to 18 years at times to have a child, which can make protecting the population numbers kind of hard to do. Even despite all that, people want to keep the species alive so that they can learn more about them and possibly figure out how it is that they live so long. Number 18. Henry the crocodile. Crocodiles are an interesting creature, not only due to their bodies but how they try and track down their prey and then eat them. They can be very vicious, and yet it's almost mesmerizing to watch them go to work. The question remains, though, how old does a crocodile really get? For a lot of animals on this list, it's going to feel impossible to get a true age, and yet when it comes to Henry, we know his exact age because we know exactly when he was captured. You see, he was caught back in 1903 and he's still living today, and that means that Henry's about, 120 years old or more, which is really old. I'll even admit that I didn't even know that crocs could live that long. The irony here is that he was captured by a man named Sir Henry, who was an elephant hunter, and why he decided to get a crocodile instead of an elephant is beyond me, but whatever works. Regardless, he caught that crocodile and named it after himself, and he's been in captivity ever since. That containment has allowed a whole lot of people to research Henry over the years and see just how long crocodiles can last, which is apparently a really long time. He's also a rather physically imposing specimen. Henry specifically is a Nile crocodile that's about 5 meters in length and weighs about 700 kilograms. When you see video of him next to a human, well, humans look pretty freaking tiny in comparison, and they should be grateful that Henry doesn't go, "Ooh, dinner," and just latch onto them, which he could totally do, by the way. After all, Nile crocodiles are infamous for how they occasionally do eat humans. In truth, Henry's age speaks to a general lack of understanding that we have about certain creatures. Sure, with dogs and cats and certain birds, even bugs at points, we can guess their general lifespan and we know just how long they have. But with animals we don't see on the regular, like crocodiles, it can be much more tough to know how long they last, and sometimes the answers are truly awe-inspiring. Number 17. Ocean quahog. Humans can sometimes be rather forgetful. We eat a whole bunch of things that are alive in one form or another, and we happily digest them without issue, unless they're not cooked properly. Clams are one of those things that are living beings, and yet we harvest them and have nice seafood meals out of them. When it comes to the ocean quahog, this is one of the popular kinds of clams that are harvested once they reach maturity and then sold as food. While you may not realize, though, is that potentially you could be eating an entity that is many hundreds of years old. The oldest ocean quahog that was found and measured by scientists was stated to be 507 years old, and it was actually still growing when it was caught, so nobody really knows what the upper limits of its age would be. The reason for the long life cycle is due to how they grow, which in this case is slowly. They sometimes only grow during the summer season, and that means that they're still for the rest of it. It really kind of makes you wonder how it evolved to only grow during certain parts of the year. Number 16. Little Mama. Now, we'll shift things from one mammal to another by talking about chimpanzees. All kinds of primates are found all over the world, but you likely would never think that many of them would have the longest of lives. Yet, for one chimp named Little Mama, it not only had a long life in captivity but also set the Guinness World Record by being 77 years old when it broke it, although sadly she died not long after. Even still, though, it is quite the impressive feat that the chimp was able to live that long, given all of the things and the actions that it was part of. It was part of a traveling circus of all sorts at one point and was even in the ice capita. Clearly, it is a very talented monkey. Now it's time for today's topic. In a quiet corner of rural Montana, USA, lives a horse that has defied all odds and captured the world's attention. Meet Old Jack, a farm horse believed to be an astonishing 157 years old. This incredible claim has been verified by local historians and veterinarians, who have studied Old Jack's lineage and health records, tracing his origins back to the mid-19th century. Old Jack has spent his entire life on a family-owned farm, where he was once a hard-working plow horse. Over the decades, he transitioned from a laborer to a beloved companion, cared for by generations of the same family. Despite his advanced age, Old Jack still roams the farm, albeit at a slower pace, and enjoys a diet of soft hay and specially prepared grains. What's most remarkable is his resilience. While most horses live to be 25 to 30 years old, Old Jack's longevity has baffled experts. Some attribute it to the peaceful environment of the farm, while others believe it's simply a genetic miracle. Visitors from around the world now come to see this living legend, marveling at the horse that has outlived wars, revolutions, and even the invention of the automobile. Old Jack is truly one of a kind. Number 15. Roughey rockfish. Now, you may have not seen this one coming. It's one thing to say that a whale can live a long time or even a tortoise can have a long lifespan, but a fish? Well, animals can sometimes surprise us, and the Roughey rockfish is one such surprising entry on the list. Apparently, it's not only this singular fish that lasts a long time but the entire genus that it's part of. However, focusing solely on the Roughey rockfish for now, we find ourselves looking at one that can last up to 205 years. Unlike some of the other creatures on this list, there is no rhyme nor reason as to why they were able to live so long. Perhaps they just evolved to be that way. Nobody can really say. What can be said is that they do live lives that are somewhat solitary, and they're not afraid to be in caves and crevices for a long time, so perhaps that can be a factor in all of it. Then again, with them being alive for so long, it just leaves them open to being food for predators eventually or being caught by some fishermen. And yes, there are fishermen who love going after fish like the Roughey rockfish. Number 14. Bowhead whale. Now, here's another creature that you can look at and say, yeah, they're going to live a long time. Whales are easily some of the most majestic creatures in the world, and given how they live in waters and how in tune they are with the oceans that they travel through, it only makes sense that they could have a long life. In the case of the bowhead whale, it's a creature that many estimate can live to be up to 200 years. They have the largest mouth of any animal, representing almost 1/3 the length of their body. That is really big, but how big is it exactly? Well, how about 4 meters long? That is big enough. Going back to its age, the first one was measured after it had been killed, and it was about 130 years old. Shocked by this, they went and found some living whales and found that one of them may have actually been around for about 211 years. Further analysis from Australian scientists suggests they could be about 268 years at max. Whales clearly don't mess around when it comes to their age, and that's why they should be protected at all costs instead of allowing the whaling industries to thin out their numbers even further. Number 13. Red sea urchins. Now, to be honest, sea urchins in general are the types of creature that you look at and say, yeah, I think I'm just going to go ahead and stay away from that. I mean, after all, these are the creatures that have the spines that you don't really want to step on, especially if they contain toxins inside of them. In the case of the red sea urchin, this is indeed a living creature that is not afraid to both poke you and take its sweet time getting to where it wants to go. It'll literally just crawl along the ocean floor when it wants to move. As for its age, it can vary widely. Some scientists claim that the average lifespan is somewhere in the range of 30 years old, while some others also claim that they can live to be up to 200 years old. I mean, after all, it is slow and steady that wins the race, right? Number 12. Tuatara. Would you like to have a venture and guess as to what a tuatara is? I know you want to. Well, it's a kind of reptile, but you shouldn't call it a lizard, as it's much more than that. Here is one of those living fossils. The tuatara is actually the last remaining species of an order that existed back in the Mesozoic era. This means that the species has been around in one form or another for hundreds of millions of years. And some may dispute that the tuatara is a living fossil, but there are actually facts to back it up. Going now to its lifespan, the extent this creature can live is quite a while. Many have lasted for over 35 years, and there have been some that have been kept in captivity and lasted even 100 years. When you think about it, given how long the species has been around, it's not that odd that a singular one has had such a long lifespan. Number 11. Lobsters. I'm going to make you a little bit hungry with the next one, but trust me, it's going to be worth it. More than likely, lobsters may be one of your favorite seafood treats, but they're also a very special sea creature because they technically never stop growing. All they do is molt off their shell and then they grow again after that. Because of this rare trait, they just keep on going, and that makes it hard to really determine exactly how long they can actually live. The oldest one ever recorded, based on molting and growth, was called George, and he apparently lived to be 140 years old. If they can stay alive for even longer, well, that's quite the impressive thing. Number 10. The Aspen Grove. While some would not define trees as creatures, they are a living part of this world, and they show their age better than anyone. However, in Utah, there is an aspen grove known as the Trembling Giant, and it's apparently, and I'm not kidding here, 80,000 years old. The grove is actually a single clonal colony of a male quaking aspen. Simply put, it essentially is one massive root system that began life an estimated 80,000 years ago, and so the trees themselves are simply clones that the roots use in order to stay alive. What's even more trippy is that because those roots are living beings and not trees, there's a chance that they could even be actually older. Number 9. Anoxicalix jubini. Now, for a real shift in tone to things that I am unable to pronounce, we're going to talk about sponges. No, not ones like on the pineapple under the sea, but ones that are both alive and do live in places like Antarctica. Known more commonly as the giant volcano sponge, these are some of the biggest living sponges that you're ever going to see, as they can be 1.5 meters wide and nearly 2 meters tall, and that makes for one big sponge. Yet what blows people away is the fact that the giant volcano sponge can apparently live up to, are you ready for this? About 15,000 years. That's what scientists believe is the estimated lifespan of these sponges, and it's absolutely crazy. The reason for their lack of growth is really their lack of growth. Because of them living in both cold waters and being under a lot of pressure due to that, they just don't exactly grow, and if you don't grow older, you technically never die. Number 8. The Pacific geoduck. Despite what the name may imply, the Pacific geoduck is not a duck at all. Instead, it's another kind of clam, albeit one that doesn't exactly look like a clam but actually is one. The geoduck is native to the coastal waters of the eastern North Pacific Ocean, from Alaska to Baja California, and what separates it from other clams is the rather long siphon that protrudes out a rather long way. And yes, as you guessed, it is also one of the longest living animals of any kind in our world, with a typical lifespan of about 140 years. However, the oldest one was recorded at 179 years old, so yes, it does live quite the long time. And ironically, this creature is easy to measure age-wise due to its own ring that it produces as it ages along. Number 7. Wisdom, the Laysan albatross. Birds are definitely a species that you wouldn't expect to have the longest of lifespans. You can likely picture ones like hawks or eagles living a few decades, but not much longer than that. Enter Wisdom, the Laysan albatross, who is the oldest bird in the world today and is over 70 years based on certain figures, one of those being that the bird was banded back in 1956, 5 years after she had hatched, and was still alive by the time that 2020 rolled around. Wisdom was still laying eggs at that point, and before you ask, the last time that she was spotted was in December of 2023, so by all accounts, she's probably still out there. Many are grateful for her longevity because of how low the numbers of the albatross population got, and the longer that she remains alive, the better the population's going to be. Number 6. The Immortal jellyfish. When I talk about immortality, it technically can mean quite a few things, especially when you dive into the fantasy and sci-fi realms, and often things like that depict a lot of stuff in various ways. But in the case of this video, I'm talking about the ability for one entity to truly live on forever so long as they don't die from something physical, or, in other words, their body's not going to grow so old that it dies like with most animals. On the surface, that seems to be impossible. Everything dies in the end, except there might be a unique exception in the form of the immortal jellyfish. This is a 100% real creature of the deep that has one of the most stunning and unbelievable abilities that you'll ever find. Can actually de-age itself. Specifically, it can go into a fully mature adult stage of its life, it will do its thing, and then revert itself back to its immature form just to start aging up again. Equally as important, it can do this under a variety of conditions. For example, if it gets harmed by a predator or gets sick or just feels the stress of the environment, it can actually revert back to its immature state in order to get better and then go back to the adult form over time. Given that there is no true limit to this kind of ability, it also means that the jellyfish is immortal outside of physically getting killed by another entity or a disease coming in and taking it out before it can revert to its previous form. The fact that it can do this has stunned scientists for many years, and naturally, they're studying that fish to try and figure out just how they can replicate the process so that they can possibly help people who need to get younger in order to survive. Number 5. Oldest cats. I'll do you a 2-for-1 special here to help show just how long these cats have been around. The current oldest living cat, as confirmed by the Guinness Book of Records, is Flossie, a cat that was born in 1995, and it currently sits at about 28 years old. Flossie lives in Orpington, England, with her owner, Victoria Green. Now, that makes for a really old cat, and props to that owner for helping Flossie to last that long. Cats like Flossie often owe their longevity to a combination of good genetics, a healthy diet, and attentive care from their owners. Regular veterinary checkups and a stress-free environment can also play a significant role in extending a cat's lifespan. Interestingly, older cats like Flossie often develop unique personalities, becoming more affectionate or set in their ways as they age. On the other hand, Cream Puff, the oldest cat ever recorded, was raised by Jake Perry in Austin, Texas, who was known for his unconventional pet care methods, including feeding his cats unusual treats like bacon and eggs. Perry also created a stimulating environment for his cats, complete with cat-sized movie theaters and climbing structures, which may have contributed to their long lives. Cream Puff's record-breaking age of 38 years has yet to be surpassed, and her story continues to inspire cat lovers around the world. These extraordinary lifespans remind us of the deep bonds that can form between humans and their feline companions over decades. However, if you want to know the oldest household cat to have ever lived, that would be Cream Puff, who lived to be an astounding 38 years old. I mean, could you imagine having a cat for over 2 or 3 decades, especially if its name was Cream Puff? I surely can't, nor would I want to even attempt it. It just goes to show that you can sometimes have a pet who will truly be with you possibly forever. Number 4. Vatsella. Now, we know that elephants have long memories, but do they have long lives? As with all things, it sometimes depends on the individual that you're looking at. In the case of Vatsella, it is truly a rare specimen that is not only over 100 years old, but is the only recorded elephant to have reached that impressive feat. For the record, the previous oldest elephant was 89 years old, which in itself is still odd but not 105 like Vatsella is. Vatsella's incredible age has made it a subject of fascination for researchers, who are eager to understand the factors that contributed to its longevity. Some speculate that a combination of genetics, a stress-free environment, and a consistent diet may have played a role in extending its life. Elephants in captivity often live longer than their wild counterparts due to the absence of predators and access to regular veterinary care. But even in captivity, surpassing 100 years is almost unheard of. Vatsella's caretakers have noted that despite its frail appearance, the elephant still shows signs of intelligence and awareness, responding to familiar voices and routines. Its long life has also made it a living witness to decades of change, from shifts in its habitat to the evolving relationship between humans and wildlife. The elephant story has inspired conservationists to advocate for better care and protection of aging animals, emphasizing the importance of preserving their dignity in their twilight years. Vatsella is an Asian elephant, which further makes them unique amongst their kin, as other Asian elephants tend to only last about 60 years, and again, that is a long lifespan, but it is not over 100. While it is impressive that the elephant lasted so long, you can tell by its body that it's not exactly in peak health. You can see spots on its body that are clearly from old age, and then there's its trunk, which is basically just lying on the ground instead of being held up by the elephant. You can see its skin is rather baggy in some places, and it honestly just looks old, and one can only imagine what the elephant has chosen not to forget in its long lifetime. Number 3. The Earth. I know we decided to pull a fast one on you at the end because if you do really think about it, the Earth is kind of like a living creature. I mean, after all, it's what makes our lives possible by giving us air, shielding out the harmful radiation of the sun, and giving everyone its light and warmth. Oh, and it also has various cycles that it goes through to both make things live and grow along the way. The water cycle, for example, ensures that life has access to fresh water, while the carbon cycle helps regulate the planet's temperature and atmosphere. The Earth's magnetic field, generated by its molten core, acts as a protective shield against harmful solar winds, making it a vital component of our planet's life systems. Scientists estimate that the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, a staggering age that has allowed it to witness the rise and fall of countless species, including the dinosaurs. Despite its age, the Earth is still dynamic, with tectonic plates shifting, volcanoes erupting, and ecosystems constantly evolving. However, human activity has accelerated changes in ways that could disrupt these natural cycles, leading to concerns about the planet's long-term health. Efforts like renewable energy, conservation, and reforestation are seen as ways to help restore balance and ensure the Earth remains habitable for future generations. Plus, one of the biggest discussions out there is that of how exactly old the Earth is. Say, for instance, if you were to believe in the Big Bang, you would say it's a couple billion, and it's one that did have to grow to become the adult form that it is now. As for actually how long the Earth may last, that really kind of depends on human beings' lifestyles, habits, climate change. All of that stuff is all said to be contributors to the Earth slowly dying, and that it could die naturally, which is why people are eager to start colonizing other planets. Until that happens, though, let's all try to be just a little bit nicer to the Earth. Number 2. Ctenophora. Now, I'm going to call these creatures by their other name, comb jellies, and you can find them in just about every major body of water all over the world. They have that far of a reach. The actual lifespan of a comb jelly is not really all that impressive, as they can sometimes get to about 3 years, but that's not what I'm going to focus on here because there are some who feel that this species is actually the oldest living species on Earth, with some saying that it was around almost 700 million years ago. Fossil evidence and genetic studies suggest that comb jellies may have been among the first multicellular organisms to evolve, predating even sponges, which were long thought to be the oldest. Their simple body structure, which lacks a brain or central nervous system, is a testament to their ancient origins and evolutionary success. Despite their simplicity, comb jellies are highly efficient predators, using sticky cells called colloblasts to capture plankton and other small prey. They are also bioluminescent, producing mesmerizing flashes of light that can be seen in the dark depths of the ocean. This bioluminescence is not just for show. It may serve to confuse predators or attract mates, adding another layer of intrigue to these fascinating creatures. Some species of comb jellies are even capable of self-repair, regenerating damaged tissues with remarkable speed. Their ability to thrive in a wide range of environments, from shallow coastal waters to the deep sea, has made them one of the most adaptable and enduring species on the planet. Another thing to note here is that these creatures can reproduce asexually and in a unique way. Specifically, they will break off part of themselves, and that part will regenerate into a brand new creature, even growing on its own in a way. If they keep on doing that, the original source will never really die. Number 1. Jeanne Louise Calment. We took our time getting here, but now we're going to talk about humans. Yes, humans, aka, you and I. Depending on what you do in life, how you take care of your body, and just your overall luck, humans can live far beyond those expectations that are often thrown at them. The best example of this would be Jeanne Louise Calment, who was the oldest confirmed person to have ever lived, ever. She died at the very young age of 122, which is a lot of world events to have gone through in your life. Born in 1875, Jeanne lived through monumental moments in history, including the invention of the airplane, 2 world wars, and the rise of the internet. She attributed her longevity to a diet rich in olive oil, chocolate, and port wine, as well as her ability to stay active and maintain a positive outlook on life. Jeanne famously met Vincent van Gogh as a young girl, describing him as dirty, badly dressed, and disagreeable, a story that added to her legendary status. Scientists have studied her extensively, hoping to uncover genetic or lifestyle factors that contributed to her extraordinary lifespan. Her case has sparked debates about the limits of human longevity, with some researchers suggesting that humans may one day live well beyond 122 years thanks to advancements in medicine and technology. However, others argue that there is a natural ceiling to human life, determined by biological constraints. Regardless, Jeanne's life remains a testament to the resilience of the human body and spirit. Now, I carefully said confirmed person, because there have been people who have claimed to have been older but were either lying or could not definitively prove that fact. There were those who made incredibly bold claims, like they were over 200 years old or even 300 years old. Regardless of any of that nonsense, Jeanne was the oldest amongst us, and it will take quite the feat to ever break her record. Which of these animals surprised you with their incredible age? Did you know they could live that long? Maybe there's another animal or species that should have been on this list. Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the other cool videos showing up on the screen, and I'll see you next time.